Hi tubers, and a very warm welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, leave your comment on the comment section right below. So tubers, if you know anything about my channel, you know that I ordinarily wouldn't do story times about my personal life. I've always felt things like that can be quite invasive, vlogs and story times. But after a few conversations with a few friends of mine, they were like, girl, we you've lived a full life, you have seen things, why don't you share a story with the people that come to watch your channel every now and again? And I was like, okay, you know what, maybe you've got a point, maybe you have a point, and that's why we're here now, I suppose. So I don't, I'm still trying to figure out the whole trajectory of my channel, right? Knowing that I've been a full-on commentary channel and I've been mainly focused on that, if I were to venture into story times, I would want it to be a very educational one. I would want it to be something where people walk away, where someone who's watching walks away with a lesson from that. And that's how I feel about the story that I want to share with you guys today. So I hope it serves as a cautionary tale to a lot of young people out there, and also for them to be able to identify similar situations like the one I've been in that I'm about to share now. So about a couple of years ago, right? This is before my daughter, right? This is before I I had my child. I'm living home with my mom, and I was a radio presenter at this time at one of the local radio stations where I live. I'm working as a radio presenter, and naturally, when you work for a radio station, especially if it's a community radio station, you don't get to earn a lot of money from that. And at this point, I had already identified that I wanted to venture into the entertainment industry. So I was very good at radio broadcasting. I was broadcasting in Vernac. Very happy with my job. I got to meet a lot of celebrities while I was working at the radio station. I got to meet a lot of very influential people as well. We used to interview a lot of serious musicians and sometimes politicians, all those types of stuff. But that was beyond the point for me. That was beyond the point for me. I enjoyed being a radio broadcaster because I just genuinely enjoyed being behind the mic and speaking and just, connecting and interacting with listeners on that level. So I was a radio presenter, and mind you, I had started becoming a radio presenter when I was in matric. I remember I was in grade 12 when I got my job as a radio presenter. I used to work on Saturdays only because Monday to Friday I had school. I needed to attend to school. I had classes and stuff. I was a full-time student. But when the radio station offered me the job at the station, I was working on Saturdays, and I was doing a youth talk show with two other co-hosts that later on ended up leaving the radio station. And then I ended up running the show by myself. So the following year after matric, I wanted to go study. I was like, okay, it was very clear to me at this point that whatever course I'm going to take, it's going to have to be media related. I want to do something along the lines of the entertainment industry. Media studies is what I was looking into. I was like, okay, I'm going to go study journalism, but I was also looking into media as a whole. I wanted to venture into TV and filming production. That was my biggest goal at the time. And I was like, okay, there's no need for me now to go and study radio because at this point I've already learned how to produce the desk for myself. I had already knew how to run an entire show for myself. They had taught me that at the radio station. So I was like, there's no need for me to go and study this. And then my head was all over the place. I wanted to do so many things at once. And then a thought came. I was like, maybe I just maybe take a gap year and not study at all and just focus on the radio gig for now, and everything is just going to naturally fall into place as time goes. And then that was the decision that I had taken at the time. This was after matric. This is now the decision that I've taken. I'm saying, okay, I'm just going to take a gap year. I'm going to maybe resume with my studies the following year. I'm not going to study at all this year. I'm just going to focus on radio. And at this time, the radio station had offered me a full-time gig, meaning I was to work from Monday to Friday at the radio station. I was doing a current affairs show which focused a lot on the current affairs, which I was very passionate about at the time. Politics and what was happening with South African politics. I remember at the time we were fighting xenophobia attacks left, right, and center in South Africa. It was a big thing. South Africans were kicking foreigners out, and I had to cover stories like that. It was exciting. It kind of gave the feeling that I was like a journalist, which is initially what I had wanted to study as well. And then there wasn't enough money from that, right? There wasn't enough money from that. So I ventured into other things as well, like your TV gigs. I would do like extras on television, like shows like your Scandals, Isidingo, Generations, those type of soapies. They would usually need extras. And I just so happened to meet a lady through my radio gigs. I had met a lady who was just so fond of me and was recruiting young people that wanted to venture into television. So she would recruit young people to go into like Auckland Park, SABC Studios, to be a part of certain shows, just to be an audience member. And you would get paid a very small amount of money for doing that. And it escalated from that to we were doing other shows like The Voice. I don't know if you know of it's a music show. Lyra was one of the Zolani Zolani Maola was one of the judges on the show. Lyra was also one of the judges on the show. It was just a lot, but you get to be an audience member. They give you food, but you also get paid a certain amount of money from that. So I ventured into that. That's what I was doing on the side. It was like my side hustle outside of radio, which I was now focusing on a weekly basis. Another thing that I might be important for this story later on. You might need to know of the story later on is that I'm such a homebody. I'm one, have always been one. I enjoy my space and time at home. I'm an extrovert at heart. I'm a people's person. I like being out there. I like going out. I like meeting people. I'm an extrovert, but I'm an extrovert that also enjoys her time by herself. So I grew up in my neighborhood. I had a best friend, right? A girl that lived in the same street as me. But we would hang out, and when we did hang out, it would always be indoors. We hardly ever like went places together unless like we were bored from staying indoors. And at this time, my friendship with the girl had like quietened down a bit. We were not as close as we used to, and I think she had relocated to go stay someplace else while I was busy focusing on my radio gig and all these other things in between. So we were not as close. So I've always been an indoor person. People that lived and still live in the same street as me will tell you they hardly ever see me in the streets. They hardly ever see me places because I'm always indoors. But there was this other lady, very old, probably was this time I was approaching my 20s, and she must have been in her mid late 20s, probably. She must have been in her late 20s at the time. She's someone that lived in the same street as me. We were never close like that. We were never friends. If anything, whenever I'd walk in my street, whenever I'd walk past certain houses, there are people that naturally, if you grow up in the hood, you know that you get taught respect. If you see adults or people older than you, naturally you greet people like on some high. I'm so distracted. My candle is coming to an end. Damn it, man. So, not to lose my train of thought of anything. So this lady lived in the same street as I, right? And whenever I'd see her, it would be just a respectful hi, and then I'd go about my day, right? I didn't know her like that. I didn't know her that well. And anyways, she was older than me. I had no business being friends with her on any personal level or anything like that. I'm this girl that just, I go to work, and then when I come back from work, I'm at home. I'm doing my, minding my own little business, doing my own little things, going about my own little life. Then there was something weird about her. She started coming to my place asking for me, right? She would just randomly ask, because I have an older brother. She would come by my place, my home, and ask my brother if I'm around or not. And my brother would be like, yeah, she's around. Should I call her for you? And then I would go and hear what this lady had to say. The strange part was, I mean, this also confused my brother. My brother was like, I don't know you to befriend older women, but she had a tendency of constantly coming into my place to check up on me, wanting to have, you know, hang out with me, which was very strange. I mean, I get people liking you and wanting to know you on a personal level, but I didn't know this lady that well. And the crazy part was the age gap between the two of us. There was a huge age difference for us to even be friends. And I had no idea what this was for. And then when she later found out that I was into these TV gigs, like I would go and be an extra on a certain particular soapy and whatnot, she then told me that she was also in that line of work as well. And knew, she would show me pictures of her and certain celebrities. And I'm like, okay, this is legit. These are the types of people I should actually be hanging out with. These are the types of people I should actually bring close to my circle, because I'm venturing into this. I mean, this is what I'm doing part time outside of my radio gig. So why not befriend her? You know, why not get close to her so that maybe by befriending her and the types of relationships she was explaining that she has with these people that are actresses and actors, was, it sounded to me like it was deeper than just they meet in the, they meet each other while shooting. It sounded to me, the way she made it sound to me was that they have a deeper connection and a deeper, she has a deeper relationship with these people. And I'm like, okay, cool. I need to bring myself close to her because I need to make a breakthrough at some point. I can't just be an extra for forever. You know, eventually I'm going to have to get into acting. I'm going to have to make mainstream. So whenever I'd hang out with her, she would speak very less about the TV gigs, but it was genuine. It was legit. It was legit because I remember there were certain soapies she would ask me, she'd be like, watch today's episode, you will see I'm going to appear. And for sure, she would actually appear on the day's episode. Like, it started off as her being an extra, just chilling in a restaurant, you know, one of those random people in the background at a restaurant whenever like the main actors are eating, drinking, doing whatever. That was the thing. That was the case with her. And then she would eventually, the more I started watching her, I would see she's breaking through. She's really making a genuine breakthrough. She's now talking in certain scenes. Like I would see she's talking. She has a full blown script, you know, and I was like, okay, it's genuine, it's legit. Not that I even questioned it to begin with. I think at the time I was also so young and naive, you know, but it made so much sense for me to be close to her because if I'm not gonna, my thought process at the time was, if I'm not gonna affiliate myself with people that are into this line of work to help me make a breakthrough, then pointless, right? Absolutely pointless. So sure enough, I get to know this girl. I start hanging out with her. But now the annoying thing is the more we get to hang out, she hardly ever speaks about the TV gigs, which is what I'm friends for you for. What I'm friends with you for. The reason why I'm bringing myself close to you, girl, is because I want you to plug me. Like, let me in. Like, give me the lowdown. Like, how do I break through? How do I also make friends in the circle of people? And you know, yeah. But I noticed she hardly would talk about those things. And then I remember her inviting me this other day, and she was like, oh, I have a friend of mine, right? She doesn't specify the friend's ethnicity, the friend's tribe, or whatnot. She just tells me that she has a friend who owns a very fancy mansion somewhere not far from Santon, and that she didn't have anyone to go to this. It was more like of a house party type of a thing, really. and she was like the friend had invited her to his place. Well, she one thing she did specify was the gender. She told me that it was a guy that had invited her to his place and that she didn't have anyone to go with and she wanted me to go with her. I think at the time I had work or something and I just could not go with her to this particular house party, whatever it was. I just could not go with her. And then I turned her down. And then there would be days where I'd go for weeks without seeing or hearing from her. And whenever I'd see her, she'd be like, "Oh, I was out of the country." Like, wait, this acting thing must really be good if you can manage to go out of the country. Because there was a time where she had came back from Dubai. She had came back from, I think she had went to Abu Dhabi first. Abu Dhabi and Dubai are almost the same thing, aren't they? But well, the first place she had gone to was Abu Dhabi. And I remember her showing me pictures. Well, she came to my place looking for me. Because another thing about our friendship, I think it was so one-sided. It was her mainly being a friend to me or bringing herself close to me or whatever it is that she was doing. But it was very one-sided. It was not a mutual thing where if I did not see her for days, I'd be concerned and call up on her. I was so naive. When I tell you I was so stupid and naive at the time, I had no idea what was happening. I was also still baffled at the fact that a lady that age would want to be friends with me. So I never really bothered to get her numbers and call her whenever I couldn't see her for days. It's only when she disappeared for some time and then she randomly came from nowhere that she would come and look for me at my place. And then she's like, "Okay, let's take a walk." She takes me to her place. When we get there, she shows me pictures on her phone of how awesome of a time she had abroad. And she's like, "Girl, we need to get you a passport," talking about me. "Girl, we need to get you a passport. You're such a pretty girl. You like things. You should be living a lavish life. You shouldn't be, gigging from one television show to the next with the type of money that you guys are making as extras and whatnot. I think you should really get yourself a passport." She really encouraged me to get a passport. When I tell you, I was so convinced. I was like, "Okay, look, if it means I have to get a passport, then so be it. Because ain't no freaking ways my life is just going to be centered around Joburg. I need to see the world." One of my plans was to travel and see the world. I'm not asking any questions. I'm just like baffled and startled at the fact that this person just came back from Abu Dhabi. She's showing me all the clothes she bought when she was that side. Very fancy, lavish stuff. Oh, another thing she had showed me was all the hair that she had bought from there. Beautiful, good quality weaves. When I tell you, I think I've at that time, weaves were starting to become a thing, like real weaves, like your Peruvians, your Indians, like your genuine real hairs. That's when it was starting to become a thing. This girl starts showing me all the bundles of hair that she got while traveling abroad. She starts showing me all the clothes that she had purchased for herself. She tells me about her shopping sprees and how lavish life was over there. And then that's when I'm like, wait, all of this from your ex? Because in my head, silly old me, I'm thinking this is from all the money from acting, all the money from maybe, I don't know, TV, the production. That because she kept telling me that she was signed with a particular production company and they were paying for her travelings, and she was traveling abroad because of work. What she was traveling abroad for was work related. I am like, girl, no ways. I need to get myself a passport. You need to plug me with this production company. I need to see who these people are, the agencies that she kept telling me about. Because another thing that she had told me was that she was signed to a specific agency, a very big South African agency, one of the biggest in Joburg. And it was them that were paying for these trips. It was them that were making her. And how she had put it was that it wasn't just her, but it was her and other ladies as well. They were signed into this particular agency and they were getting all these trips abroad. They were traveling abroad because of work and because of the agency. It was them that was like paying for all these accommodation, book flights, and whatnot. And honey, I was sold. I was sold. That's all she needed to tell me, and I was sold. I'm like, okay, cool. When I have time, I'm definitely gonna go and get my passport done. I need to just get one. I just need to get a day off one of the days because I work Monday to Friday at the radio station, and I won't be able to go get my passport done over the weekend because they are not opened at Home Affairs. So the department is closed during the weekend. I'm gonna have to do it sometime. I am sold. Listen, she didn't have to tell me any more stuff. All she needed to show me was the clothes, was the weaves, was the money, because she had brought a lot of money. She had so much money with her at the time. And that's when I was like, what else do I need? Like, what more do I need? She has told me everything I need to know. All of this. Cool. Coolies. I'm like, okay, cool. But now every time I ask for, bruh, this is also how I know that God works in mysterious ways, because this is also how I know that it wasn't meant to happen. That shit, my ancestors were probably screaming from beyond the grave on some, girl, don't you fuck this shit up, because it's not what it is. It's not what it looks like. Because every time I kept asking for days off from my job, the harder it became for them to give me, because there were points and there were moments where certain presenters couldn't certain DJs couldn't come to do their shows. I had to step in and do their shows for them. As a radio presenter, sometimes you will get scheduled to do someone else's show, which made me getting this day off harder and harder and harder. Every single time I asked for an off or was looking forward, something would happen. Like, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, this cannot be happening to me. I have to go, like, do this shit and stuff. And then every time I would be close to getting that day off, something would happen to stop it from happening. And then I eventually, because the crazy part about it was she wanted me to be a part of this so bad. She was willing to come with me to the Department of Home Affairs to get this passport done and stuff. She was willing to really take time off of her busy schedule to do this with me, to assist me and help me with it. But it just wasn't happening. Something kept coming up every time I had to do it. Something would come up. Something would There was always a story, there was always something. I remember a few weeks went by and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not gonna push this anymore. When the day comes for the radio station to give me the day off, I'll do it. I'm not gonna put myself under pressure at the moment. And a week went by, right? And she would randomly, on a random day, she would send me pictures of her at this friend's. Remember the friend who had a house party in his mansion in Santon, who had invited her to come? She would like randomly be at this person's place, and mind you, I still have never went to the mansion, and I would be so upset at how she only invited me once, and that one time I could not go, and then she never invited me again after that. Silly old me, I'm thinking, why the fuck can't she like invite me like how she invites some of her friends? Because I would see some of the girls that I lived on the same street with would get invited to this mansion, and I would see in pictures, and she would randomly do this thing where I think she was like baiting me or something. Because what she would do is she would just randomly send me pictures of them at the mansion and be like, this is what we're currently doing. She would send me the type of food they're eating, the type of drinks they're drinking, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm missing out. Why did she not invite me? Why is she not inviting me to this? Little did I know what was about to come from that. Little did I know what was about to happen after that. I think a few weeks went by and I didn't hear from her at all. Like, she randomly stopped coming to my place. She randomly stopped texting me random pictures of her in this mansion with some of her friends or whatever the case might have been. And then I remember very well, it was a hot day. I'm in my mother's house. I'm at home with my mom, and we're watching the news. Right, my mom never misses the 7 o'clock news on SABC1 every single day. To this day, that woman would tune into SABC1 to watch the 7 o'clock news. It's a hot day. We even had the lights off in the living room. My mom and I, we were so hot. And I remember we just watching television. Next thing I know, guess who pops up in my mother's television screen, arrested in OR Tambo for being busted with drugs in her luggage. Guess who guess whose name and surname and what location she's from gets announced on television by the TV person, by the news person, to say this person has been caught at the OR Tambo International Airport with a bunch of drugs in her suitcase. My friend, my so-called friend, honey, when I tell you, I was devastated and shocked for days. For days. I just could not it's still to this day. I don't think it has fully registered in my brain what happened. I don't think my mind has fully comprehended that I was in that close proximity with someone that was in that line of work. Everything started making sense to me. Everything came back flooding into my brain. It still is to this very day. Bro, a lot of people know about this story, especially people from the same street as me, people that are very close to me. Everyone was so shocked at how close this lady and I had become because it was just the friendship was off. Do you know of people that would become friends and you just look at them and you think this doesn't make sense at all? That's when people from my street now came out. When the news broke and everyone found out what had happened. Now, this is when people start coming up to me and be on some, oh girl, but we knew. How could you have not known? And I'm like, how the fuck was I going to know about this? I'm always at home with my mother. If I'm not at home, I'm at work doing my radio thing. And then I come home and then I chill. I do whatever that it is I need to do. I've never really gotten, I've never gotten to a point where I was curious about wanting to investigate or do my research on whether what she was telling me was the truth or not. I genuinely believed everything she had told me. I I genuinely believed that the traveling, the flights were paid for by a certain agent. That's when people from my street were like, girl, this lady has been pulling up with fancy ass cars that are driven by Nigerian men. She has been hanging out with Nigerians. She has been posting on her status messages. She has been posting on her socials that she goes to a particular mansion and that mansion is owned by a Nigerian guy who happens to be a drug lord of whatever has unfolded now. I'm like, wait. I was friends with this person. There is no freaking ways in hell. They were like, yeah, sis, you just didn't know it yet. But she probably became that close to you. She probably made friends with you because she had a plan for your life. She wanted to recruit you. And that was obvious now at this point. Everything started making sense. She really pushed hard for me to go and apply for a passport, for me to be able to take these international flights with her. She told me that she was gonna introduce me to this agency of hers that was gonna help me make a breakthrough in the acting industry, and that all of these things, she had told me all of these things, and I believed her. I genuinely, honestly, in my heart of hearts, believed her. She was arrested, and honey, when I tell you, I think I lived in shock for months and months and months and months after that. In fact, I think years later, I am still shocked at how something like that could have easily happened to me without even knowing about it. Because here's the thing, my thing is that I was gonna be introduced to whoever these drug lords are under the guise of these are the production people. But what would have been the story? Was I even gonna buy into it? Knowing myself and how I'm a very cautious person when it comes to decision making. Hell, even the slightest and smallest of decisions that I take and make with my life, I am very I give things a thought. So I can't help years later, I can't help but still ask myself, what would that conversation what was that conversation going to look like? What would it have looked like? What would it what was it that they were going to say to me to sell me into this whole, how are they going to get me in? Like, I've obviously heard stories. I've watched a lot of interviews about girls and ladies that were involved in this line of work where they became, where they were drug trafficked and stuff, where they had to move drugs around the country, sometimes out of the country, they got busted. I've listened to those stories quite a number of times, but I can't help but wonder about my own situation. Like, I can't help, I have so many questions to this day. What the fuck was she thinking? Like, what the hell was she thinking? Because it doesn't matter from what angle you look at it from. She was definitely trying to recruit me to become one of the drug traffickers. I was going to travel abroad and move drugs around the country. But how would I have gotten to that? How would the conversation, how would it have lended to that? How would we have gotten to the part where I am told this is what you're gonna do and me agreeing to that? In what world did she ever imagine? Like, the audacity, the guts for this lady to think and believe that I was gonna be the target for her to try and recruit me to do this nonsense with her. So this, more than anything else, I wanted to serve as a cautionary tale that sometimes question things, ask about these things, find out more, investigate if you have to. A lot of people have fallen trapped into stories and situations like this because they believed that they were gonna get out of poverty, they were gonna get out of whatever living situation that they are under, and that things were going to look up for them. And a lot of times we're driven by passion for what we love and what we do. I had passion for TV. I had passion for radio more than anything at the time, but I wanted to break into TV as well. And I'd already made a break into it, but I wanted a breakthrough. I wanted to really become big. And I had tried, talking to people about getting into agencies and stuff, but it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that simple. But also because I never really dedicated much time into it at the time. Because, like I said, I was a full-time radio presenter. I was a radio DJ at the time, and I had fully invested in that. But I had already knew what direction I wanted to take with my life. I wanted to be in the entertainment industry. I wanted to either be on radio, continue be on radio, or get into television and acting and presenting and all that stuff. But and when she came along, she made things sound very easy for me. She was very cooperative. She was someone that wanted to literally wake up in the morning and escort me to the Department of Home Affairs to see it through, to see the whole process of the passports coming into fruition and coming alive. It was just unfortunate that things unfolded the way they did with me because it just never happened the way it was planned. But can you imagine if it was the other way around? Can you imagine if things turned out differently? Be very careful who you associate yourself with. Be very careful with people that bring themselves around your space under the guise of friendship, people that claim they want to be friends with you, people that claim that they want to help you out of certain situations and get you into certain situations. Question, ask, find out, do your research, find out how legit is it. Just do your research, man, because fuck, I would have been somewhere arrested in a foreign country as we speak. I think the lady also was released, or whatever had happened with her, because she attended court cases which were also happening live on TV. I literally would see her every now and again after the story came out, after it made headline news, because it did make headline news. She was everywhere. She was on newspapers. She was talked about on radio. She was on the news. Like, you wouldn't believe. She attended court cases after that. I think she went on trial. I don't know if she was found guilty or not. I just know that I think about a year ago, I bumped into her on the streets. And I literally was like, hi, and went about my day. Because, man, I have nothing to say to you after you did what you did. I absolutely have nothing to say to you because, girl, what were you trying to do with me? Why were you trying to get me into this? Fuck no. Thank you for tuning into this video. Please do subscribe, do like, do share, but most importantly, do leave your comment on the comment section right below.